Hi, I'm Lumdubs. Welcome back to Play Plat Pass. In this video, I'll be reflecting on my experience going for the Platinum Trophy in Wulong Fallen Dynasty and then giving the game a rating of either play it, platinum it, or pass it. Wulong is set during a fictional version of the Fall of the Han Dynasty. It features a variety of historical characters and Chinese mythological creatures that the player must fight as they have been corrupted by demonic qi. The game has a fairly linear story, which is played out in missions, or as they're called in Wulong, battlefields. There are a total of 46 missions in the game, 16 main battlefields needed to complete the story, and 30 sub-battlefields, all of which are not needed to beat the game at all, but it might help if you need a few extra levels if you are struggling on one or two of the main missions. It is a Souls-like action RPG developed by Team Ninja. Team Ninja are known for developing games such as Ninja Gaiden and the Neo series, all of which are known for being difficult games to beat, let alone platinum, especially the Ninja Gaiden games. Before starting Wulong, I did have some experience with Neo 2, and initially that is why I delayed playing the game, as Neo 2 is not an easy game and has a lot of mechanics to learn and understand. However, I was pleasantly surprised by how much more simplified Wulong was by comparison, and I feel it's a much nicer entry point for beginners because of how much more simplified the mechanics of the game are. Even the leveling system is simplified compared to the other titles, and this can be seen in the experience I had playing the game. There are a total of 51 trophies in the base game of Wulong. There are 17 story related trophies to be earned just for finishing the main missions in the game. There are 27 miscellaneous trophies, most of which you will earn just through playing the game. An example of this is reaching level 15, which will be earned very early on. Lastly, there are 6 trophies for collectibles in the game. There are no missable trophies, so you can play through the game without missing anything and go back to any mission at any time to clean up the rest. You start the game in a burning city. This is the first mission, and it is used to explain the basic mechanics, controls, and the leveling system in the game. You have the basics such as movement and attacking, but there's also 2 important mechanics mentioned in this mission which you need to understand, and the better you understand these 2 mechanics, the easier time you'll have with the game. The first one is the counter. In Wulong, there isn't a typical parrying system. It is all about countering attacks to reduce the enemy's spirit level, leaving them open for a punishing attack. And unlike a typical parrying system, the tell for the moves to the counter are more obvious and the window is much larger. This I feel makes it a very easy mechanic to learn, which is good as it is very important for the game. The second mechanic is the morale system. This system is both for the player and the enemy, as it indicates how powerful the enemy you are fighting is. In the beginning, I didn't pay too close attention to this, but there was one mission that changed that, and after I made sure to keep an eye on it and use it as intended. Because if you match the morale level or are higher than the enemy you are fighting, you will have an easier fight than if you are lower than them. The leveling system in the game is really simple to understand and is very beginner friendly. There are a total of 5 stats you can put points into, which are color coded for the elements in the game, and each one increases a number of attributes for your character. All you have to decide is what attributes you want to increase over the others. There are detailed builds you can make in the game using the stats from leveling and all the different types of armor and weapons, each with their own levels, stats and special effects. But all of this can be overwhelming with all the information available to the player. But the good thing is that the game is still able to be beaten just by looking at the basics for the stats and the basic stats on the armor and weapons that you use. I had no issue building my character as I played, and I happily stuck with the weapon type I started the game with, because I enjoyed the fighting style and didn't feel the need to change it as I went through the game, as it always remained fun to use. All I did was upgrade it and change it out for a higher level version as I progressed through the game. After working my way through the first mission and learning the various controls and mechanics, I was left with the boss. This boss is used to teach the player to combine all the knowledge they've gained through the level to win the fight. I went into the boss fight with very little confidence that I would win, but that changed as the fight went on and I got more and more comfortable with the countering system, and it wasn't long before I defeated them. This really boosted my confidence, but it wouldn't be long before that would come back to bite me. The next couple of levels weren't too difficult. After exploring the map for each mission, I would go to fight the boss at the end. I was able to beat them with little to no issues, which again really boosted my confidence with the game. all of which just adds to it coming back to bite me later on. Now it was on to mission 5, which is the first mission to cause me some issue. The main issue is getting through the map because one of the tougher enemy types you can encounter in the game, the tiger looking ones, were right at the start of the mission, and each one of these can be quite strong and unforgiving if you are not prepared. I eventually was able to make it to the boss, which also gave me a little bit of trouble, and it did lead me to venting my frustrations on the NPC that helps you in a fight. But I eventually beat the boss and moved on to the next mission. Mission 7. Here is where I was brought down a peg and had to learn not to be confident going into the boss fights. Exploring the map wasn't too bad. I was slowly working my way through the mission and made it to the first boss and beat them on the second attempt. It was now onto the final boss of the mission, Lu Bu. I went into the Lu Bu fight feeling confident and expecting to get it finished in a couple of attempts, but that is not how it went at all. I was very swiftly humbled, time and time again. Even bringing in NPCs to help didn't change the outcome. This required me to really look at what I was doing wrong, and the issue was obvious. In earlier levels, I didn't need to keep an eye on the morale system, but here is the first time I really had to look at it, and I was 5 levels below Lu Bu, which was the biggest cause for the issues in the fight. To resolve this, I went exploring and killing more enemies in the mission to reach the same morale level as Lu Bu. Now I was a higher morale level, I attempted the Lu Bu fight again, and this time I was able to live long enough to start learning his attacks and how to counter them. Eventually, I was able to defeat Lu Bu and move on to the next mission. After the Lu Bu boss fight, I didn't really have many issues when it came to what was left to beat the story. I explored the levels, beating the enemies and increasing my morale level as I explored, and was able to make it through them with very little issues. That was until I came to the last 2 missions, the decisive battle of Guandao and the crouching dragon roars. Exploring the level in the mission decisive battle of Guandao wasn't too difficult. I slowly made my way through it to the mid-level boss, Yan Shao. This fight wasn't too bad, the counters weren't too difficult to learn and read, and this allowed me to beat him in as few as 2 attempts. Straight after Yan Shao, it was on to the main boss for the level and the main antagonist for the game, Yu Jin. Yu Jin is another boss fight that I had some issues with. The boss fight is split into 2 phases. The first phase, he is in human form, and after learning his attack patterns and when to perform the counters for his attacks, the fight can be straightforward. My main issue was his second phase. In this phase he transforms into a dragon. My first few attempts I was not a high enough morale level, and when I was in the fight the morale level I did have would drop due to being hit by his critical attacks. After failing to beat Yu Jin multiple times, I decided to go back through the level to explore more and find things I missed that will help me increase my morale level. After more exploration, I was ready to go fight Yu Jin again, and this time, after a few more fights, I was able to hold my own against both his first and second phase and beat him. Now it was on to the final main mission of the game, the Crouching Dragon Roars. This mission takes place in the same place as the first. There were no normal enemies to fight in this mission, as the only enemy was the boss, which meant that there was no need to prep for the fight, I just had to go in and fight him. At this stage in the game, I was very familiar with the mechanics and what my playstyle was, so the final boss fight wasn't too difficult. A lot of the issues I had when fighting him were small mistakes I was making that were being punished, but eventually, after dying to the blindfolded boy a good few times, I was able to counter his attacks and emerge victorious. Now all that was left was to go through the game, cleaning up what was needed to be done for the Platinum Trophy, which wasn't a lot, as I'd earned most of the trophies just by playing the game. The main things left to do were to complete all the side missions and get all the collectibles. There are 5 different types of collectibles in the game. There are 31 tablets, 23 shih tzus, which are demon pandas, 22 health upgrades, 21 golden cicada shells, and 142 battle flags. The battle flag collectibles seem daunting because of the number of them, but they are also the checkpoints for you to use within the levels, so you naturally will collect most, if not all of them, in the level you play. The other collectibles can be found as you go through most of the levels. Luckily though, you can go back into a mission as many times as needed to find them, and there's also a way to check what you've collected in a level and what you're missing. Underneath the image of the mission, there are icons for each of the collectibles. If they are grayed out, they have not been collected, and if they are in colour, they have been. It didn't take me long to work my way through all the unfinished side missions and to collect all the collectibles I was missing, as I was now a high enough level to be able to run through most of the missions with no issues. Once all the missions have been beaten and all the collectibles picked up, the Platinum Trophy finally popped. So what can I say about Wo Long other than it is a brilliant game? I had so much fun playing this purely for the combat alone. It is so fluid and smooth, and when you start to really learn it, you feel really good when you're finally able to defeat the strong enemies with ease. My only drawback with the game is that as much as I enjoyed it, the story felt a bit flat. It just didn't grip me enough to really get invested in the characters or the overall plot. But to be completely honest, I enjoyed the combat and the boss fight so much that the story could have been the worst thing ever written, and I still would have enjoyed myself just based off gameplay alone. It was a game I had down as a must play since it was released, and I was recently told to just give it a go. I now wish that I played it when it first came out instead of waiting this long to start it. It also changed how I feel about the setting of the game, and I now want to go through more games just like it. Overall, the game is brilliant and I enjoyed every minute of it, even the cleanup, as it let me have more time with the combat. So I would give this a rating of Plat It. And this is because even though you may not get everything done the first time you go into a mission, any cleanup is minimal if you just go into it with exploration in mind for the first playthrough. So just go off, enjoy the game, and then just get the finishing touches done for the platinum. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you have a game suggestion, let me know in the comments below.